Hey, it's Emmett. I think I'm just slowly endeavoring to show YouTube every angle of my apartment. I don't know. Anyway, I often feel a little bit weird about giving advice to other writers because what do I know? I am a nobody. But there is one thing that in my nobodiness I am absolutely qualified to discuss, and that is rejection. I first started submitting plays to real grown-up competitions and the like when I was about 13, and as a novelist, I did the query go-round, and upon securing an agent, spent ages on sub with a book that has yet to find a home. So I've gathered a few rejections in my time, enough to know that not all rejections are created equal. There are many species of rejections, and just like you should know the difference between a garter snake and a tiger snake and how to behave around them, it's good to know some of the different types of rejections you might encounter and how to respond to them, if at all. The first, the form rejection. This is usually pretty easy to identify, although sometimes people are fooled because they expect form rejection to mean something cold and personality-less, that it sounds like a machine wrote it. That's often not the case. Remember, an agent or an editor is going to be sending their form rejection out a lot, so they usually take some time at the outset to craft a nice, pleasant message that won't make the recipient feel too horrible. Their job is not day ruiner, as much as it might feel like it sometimes. So 2 ways to tell if you're looking at a form rejection. 1, did they comment on anything specifically about your book, premise, sample pages? Even if it's pretty vague, like, I enjoyed the premise, but the writing just didn't click for me, that's not a copy and paste job, not a form rejection. If you're still just not sure and you want to know a more detective-y way to find out, and this mostly just works for agents, possibly some small presses, is to go to Query Tracker, find the Query Tracker listing for the agent or the small press, and check out their comments. People often compare the responses they've gotten from agents there for this exact reason, to figure out what they're looking at and how to interpret it. I will link the website in the description because aside from comparing failures, it's a really invaluable tool for a querying writer. They provide you with a place to sort of collect all of your data, which if you're like me and that's not like a fun thing that you want to do, it's really nice to have a website that just makes it really easy. Anyway, you should not respond to a form rejection. The agent or editor probably won't remember your name either way, so if you want to try them again with a different project later, go for it. I would avoid requerying them with the same project, and I wouldn't mention your previous query when you requeried the new thing. Clearly you didn't leave much of an impression. The good news is you might get another crack at a first impression. 2, the meh rejection. Meh. The example I used above, liked the premise, writing didn't click for me, would fall into this category. They spent enough time with it to give you an individual response, but they're just not that into you. If this came from an agent, I'd probably cross them off my list to send future projects to, because it sounds like my voice isn't suited to their taste, and that's not really something I want to do something about, because that's my voice. So no harm, no foul, no response necessary. 3, the no response means no rejection. No response means no is a phrase some agents or editors will use right on their websites, sometimes with a ballpark time frame after which you can safely assume they aren't into it, even if you've heard nothing from them. Since they haven't given you any response, obviously you don't need to respond to them. If somebody doesn't outright say that they're a no response means no kind of person, you can try politely nudging an agent who hasn't replied to a query within, say, 6 months. Sometimes they give you a time in which it's okay to nudge them. That kind of information can also be found on Query Tracker or on the agent's website sometimes. It certainly happens that good stuff gets lost in the slush pile by accident. As far as resubmitting after a no means no situation, I would go with the same guidelines I suggested for a form rejection. Don't submit the same story, and don't mention that you submitted to them before without a response, because it just sounds like nagging. 4, the ouch rejection. So this is when the rejection is just kind of bluntly insulting. The good news is these are actually pretty rare in my experience. I don't believe I had a single one when I was querying. I had maybe one or two when my book was on sub. I think the difference is that when you're on sub, the editor is responding to the agent, not the author. So, you know, they're all professionals, might as well get to the point. No need to sugarcoat it. It's generally your choice as an author whether you want your agent to forward you the actual content of the rejection emails they get on your behalf or only tell you if there's good news. I wanted to know everything, so honestly, that's on me, and on balance, I think it was worth it. And the good thing about getting one of these ouch rejections through an agent is that whatever that editor said, your agent, who's the person you are actually talking to, still believes in your work. So that softens the blow a bit. 5. The no thanks, but thanks rejection. This could also be called the encouraging rejection. This often comes after a full or partial manuscript request. They have spent considerable time with the work. Maybe they've even offered you some really detailed feedback, but this project at this time is not for them. This can obviously be a letdown, but to reframe it a bit, that agent or editor just did a pro bono crit for you and left the door open. They're investing time to help you because they see potential. There are 2 things you should do when you get this kind of rejection. 1, thank them. A thank you isn't necessary for most rejections. Some agents even find it kind of weird to be thanked for a form rejection, but this is a different situation. And even if you're bummed, you should acknowledge the time they put into giving you feedback. 2, remember them. Especially if their feedback resonates with you, this could be a great person to send future projects to. Not only are they already a little bit invested in your success, but if you've gotten a taste of what they can offer you in terms of editorial guidance. Now, if you really disliked their feedback, if it didn't sound like they understood the book you were trying to write, then still thank them, but okay, maybe don't send them your next thing. Either way, you've learned a little more about them and it might come in handy. 6, the revise and resubmit request. Notice, this has a lot of R words in it, but none of them are a rejection. Similar to the above, they've probably read your book, given you some feedback, but not only are they open to seeing your future work, they actually want to see this work again after some changes. Why am I even listing this under rejection types? Well, the question of rejection actually kind of falls into your hands here. You get to look at what they're asking and decide if it's in line with your vision for the project. I would advise caution on both sides here. Don't automatically say no because it sounds like a lot of work, or you think if they really wanted your book, they would take it now and request edits later. Yes, it will probably be a lot of work, but not just for you. They aren't doing this just to make your life more difficult. It's putting a lot of work on their plate too. They have to write you an edit letter, read the revised manuscript again when you're done with it, and then decide all over again if it works for them now, all without any guarantee that this is going to lead to a profitable contract. Similarly, if you decide to take this on, you'll be spending possibly months in revision with no guarantee that they'll take it in the end. So while I'd advise against a knee-jerk no, I'd also only recommend a yes if you think their suggestions are going to make the book better. Not just for this particular agent or editor's taste, but in general. Most important, do you think you'll enjoy the book more if you do these edits? If you will, this really becomes a win-win for you. Either you're one step away from finding your book a home, or you're one step away from having your a manuscript you're more proud of to move forward with. 7, the we all got together and decided not to play with you rejection. This sounds more harsh than it is, I promise. This is when your work is rejected by a group of people. I've experienced this most often as a playwright. Scripts are often assessed by a theater company or a panel of judges for competitions. It's just part and parcel with the collaborative nature of theater that your work, if it's not pitched out within the first round of Slutch, which I've been there too, is going to be put before a hive mind. And there is something fundamentally unsettling about opening an envelope to find the Reader's Digest version of a conversation in which people you respect ultimately decided you were unworthy. But I've also had some of the nicest, most thoughtful comments on my work from these kinds of rejection. A lot of times, the story this kind of rejection really tells is that at least one person in that room really was rooting for you, and it just didn't quite swing your way. The equivalent rejection I've experienced as a novelist was also the closest my book got to publication. I'd done a major R&R, the editor now wanted my book, and that meant other people had to be convinced, and they weren't. If you find yourself being rejected by a group of humans, it's a drag, but take a moment to recognize how far you've come. There's this myth in publishing that it only takes one yes, which is just flat out not true. It takes like 6 yeses minimum per book, I'm pretty sure. If you're at the point where an acquisitions committee even has the chance to reject you, you've probably already gotten some key yeses from your agent, from the editor who brought you to acquisitions. Your yes batting average is on the up. There are more yeses out there with your name on them. You just haven't hit them yet. Keep swinging. 8. The it's not you, it's me rejection. This is the rejection I think I most wish I'd been told about because it happens a lot and I swear I did not know this was a thing. It's when you get a rejection, it's super nice, full of lovely compliments, but it's still a rejection. Often the rejector in this case cites some kind of businessy reason they can't take on your project. The agent already has something too similar on their list. The book isn't quite right for the imprint the editor is working at. There are a lot of reasons a publishing professional might really like a book on a personal level, but it doesn't make good business sense for them. Enjoy the compliments, accept the business is a thing, and again, remember the person who sent you this rejection. If you write something else that isn't too similar to one of their clients' books or that fits their imprint better, you can come back to them, and if they read your book in full before making their call and enjoyed it as much as they said, they'll likely remember you too if you remind them of this exchange in your next query. So, there you have it, Emmett's taxonomy of rejections. I hope this helps some of you who might be a little bit intimidated about opening yourself up to all the disappointment that comes along with querying and beyond. It's not the most fun thing, but when you've got enough of them under your belt to start to see the patterns emerge, it does start to lose some of its sting. It's not personal. It's just strangers making business decisions that happen to involve your imaginary children. Most importantly, if you're getting rejected, you're one giant leap ahead of everybody who's not trying. So just cling to that smug sense of superiority, wrap it tightly around you to shield yourself from those bitter, bitter winds of no. And if you're already out there in the wide and wonderful world of literary rejections, my question to you is, are there any species you've encountered that I've missed? Do you have a favorite kind of rejection? Or a least fave, besides kind of all of them? Let me know in comments. See you later. Peace.